Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Happy Tuesday to you here. Keep in mind today's the US election. We're going to see some pretty insane stuff, which we probably already have, right? This breakout so far likely correlated to the fact that people are expecting some really cool stuff here from the market today. But anyways, that's just hearsay at the moment. We never truly know how the fundamental catalysts are going to treat us, but we can see here pretty strong start here for SUI where it was able to break through this descending trend line, did not reject off that local resistance at 190, and continued higher to inevitably bounce off this 192 range. Okay, so again, price comes up, a little bouncy poo, and continues higher. Now we're looking at a pretty significant little continuation likelihood here. So I think SUI is probably going to continue higher, but we got to recognize this is a pretty strong push, and a lot of it is based on the fact that Bitcoin pumped, okay? So you got to recognize, if you take a look at these two charts, they're almost identical, okay? Very, very similar in a lot of ways. So let's not get naive and just think that SUI is like a beast on its own, which it is kind of. It's also moving concurrent with Bitcoin, only 3x of Bitcoin, which is good. Most other altcoins, 1 to 2x, so it's a very, very good sign. All right, so now that we understand that, the general correlation between the two coins, very similar, we can recognize that Bitcoin, and let me go and pull up our playout chart here for Bitcoin. First of all, short liquidation delta is still really high. I think we're going to see further upside. I think there's a strong probability we're going to see Bitcoin continue upwards of this 71.7 resistance to retest that here in the relative near future. Again, based on how things work out today fundamentally, that could change a lot. But from a technical standpoint, Bitcoin looks poised and ready to rock and roll. I think SUI will follow suit. Okay, so that's just kind of the foundation of what's going on. When we look at the liquidation levels, we can recognize 210 to 230. There's a chunk of shorts upwards of about 250. A lot of those have been here for a while. They've been shorting ever since the price got to about 210. But at this point, I'm sure they're probably getting a little concerned. Funny thing is, they're still holding onto their shorts. That's the amazing thing about short sellers or long holders too. Anyone using high leverage typically has a tendency of holding on for too long. Either way you look at it here, we got some previous shorts. These are actually shorts from back in October on the 24th, about 2 weeks ago. Imagine that, still holding a short on SUI, coming all the way as low as 160 and not securing profits, and now being almost in the red if you count liquidation, or sorry, leverage fees. And it's amazing to me how greedy people will get. If you're ever going to be greedy, be more greedy on a long than a short. It makes a lot more sense statistically, because you're going to find more, there's less risk going to the upside than the downside. Anyways, anyone who's in a short trade between 213 and 240, I would be careful, okay? I think 240 is a little less likely. It seems like a pretty obvious area of retracement. It'll probably reject there if we get there. But just know there's quite a lot of liquidation as we get closer to 240. That's the local high, or basically the all-time high for SUI. Taking a look here, of course, liquidation delta, I really like this here. This is good. Most other coins are massively overextended, and now our delta here is just barely a little bit in the red. In other words, we have slightly more short holders than long holders in the market right now as far as liquidation events are concerned for shorts. Okay, so that's good. When it starts getting closer to equilibrium, it means that the price action can start behaving more normally instead of being like a complete outlier like we've seen here in the last 24 to 48 hours. Like if you saw my Bitcoin analysis from last night, you'll know that everything was truly bearish, but it felt really weird and my spidey senses were tingling, and it just really had that feeling that the price is going to pull, that it was going to recover instantly, based on the simple fact that the market's giving us every indication it's going to go down. All the more reason why it came back up. But the main reason is because short liquidation delta was closer to about 10 billion, and that's way too much. Okay. Anyways, just some little things that kind of factor in to help us out. As we can see, Bitcoin's pulling back a little bit here, and SUI is not. So this is a good sign. We can see SUI holding strong here with a nice little triangle and or ascending type of channel. These are very, very good things. Likely to see further breakout. It would make sense, of course, for it to cool off before it does, but SUI doesn't necessarily have that quality of wanting to cool off before it goes on runs. So I wouldn't be surprised if it just continues higher. Either way you look at it here, on the daily time frame, let's quickly understand we're back up above all moving averages. We are barely below we are below the 20-day SMA for about 5 days. Now that we're back up above, granted we closed at 195 or higher today, I still think we're going to close over $2, mainly because that's our point of control and or key level resistance. We can close above that, we'll be in really good shape. Strong likelihood of further upside. We also got confirming factor here, back up over 50 on the RSI. These are all confirming factors that you want to look for when taking a long position with confidence. Okay, MACD hasn't fully converged yet, but it wants to. We're on the edge of some pretty cool stuff. Keep in mind we have our local high at about 208. I'm going to round up and say 210. But you can see there was about 3 days of daily candlestick closures where the price action had some difficulty getting across that level. So I'm just going to leave that on the chart for future reference just to give us some perspective. So that's, again, just above the local high. It's pretty easy to see if you kind of look in there and zoom in. Okay, we're getting closer to 70 on the RSI. This is generally construed as a resistance range, so that kind of speaks to the 205 to 210 mark. I would say that at this point, if it continues higher for SUI, we will see the price action probably reject out there. Okay, basically just implying or reinforcing the resistance in the 210 to 205 range. Now again, stochastics kind of maxing out, MACD's converging. We're over all moving averages. So this is again 10 out of 10 reasons to consider a long versus a short. Now, do you take a long right now at this exact level? Maybe not. You may want to consider waiting, but on the same accord, this coin does have a tendency of running two, so it wouldn't hurt to get some skin in the game. I would say $2 even is a good consideration for a long on this coin. And then alternatively to that, we can also say 195/190. I think those are less likely to occur just based on the simple fact that we've broken soundly above this 0.618 golden pocket at fib level, and the price action more likely to go higher. But if we look at this here, I mean, look, Bitcoin is pulling back pretty significant, and SUI is just kind of getting started. So I think the price action is more likely to go higher than lower at this point. It just makes sense. Okay, so taking a look here at the hourly, we're going to get the same confirming factors that we've seen on other charts too. Pretty much all coins are exuding the same behavior here, where the lagging spans free and clear, conversion lines over the baseline, and we're well above the cloud. So this just kind of reinforces the fact that taking a short right now is a bad idea. Now, is taking a long a good idea? Generally, I would say no, based on the U.S. election and things happening in a on the macro from a fundamental standpoint. Just best practice to avoid trading in those conditions. However, this does look like it absolutely wants to break out. We're starting to see some really cool little patterns here forming at this support. So my speculation is along from $2 and upwards, it makes a lot more sense than any consideration for a short. And I know the compulsion to want to short when the price action gets overextended, but this isn't a massive overextension. I mean, you could argue that we're getting closer to our top, which is true. But again, if you're going to consider a long from $2, just say hypothetically, upwards of 210 or 208, 209, that's a good 4.5% movement. That's generally the kind of range I like to work within. So if I see SUI back down to this $2 mark, I'm going to heavily consider a long there. That's just generally what I'm thinking. Again, a lot of factors are included here today, folks, so you got to take this with a grain of salt. We are seeing a U.S. election later today. Depending on whichever candidate is elected, will determine a lot on what's going to happen next. Okay, so please understand that. But my money's on the price still going up in the overall sense. From a technical standpoint, everything looks primed and ready to go, and short liquidation delta is still too high on other coins. That leads me to believe, more specifically with Bitcoin, that if it goes up, other coins will follow. Once more, short liquidation delta is too high. I think we're close to about 4 to 5 billion in liquidation short delta for Bitcoin. Still too high. Okay, so just know that exists. That's in the back end. Okay, cool. I hope I made sense and I clarified this correctly. Don't forget to like the video. Deeply appreciate that. Make sure you join us over here with Bitunix $60,000 progressive prize pool. We were already almost to unlock 15,000 in prize pool money, and at this point we're on target to hit that 60K mark. So top 20 essentially qualified. Really cool stuff. Check it out. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.